Welcome to the Perrysburg Podcast, episode 104. I am your host, Perrysburg resident Kim Newlove. This podcast is a resource for Perrysburg residents. Whether you're looking to move here, you're brand new here, or you've been here for a while, this podcast is for you. We talk about what's in Perrysburg and why people like to live here. Our website is perrysburgpodcast.com. This is the fourth and final part in my summer reading series. The goals of this series are to encourage you to read this summer or inspire you to write your first book. Part one of this series was my interview with Alicia and Tracy at Way Public Library about their summer reading programs. Part two was my interview with Perrysburg resident and author Bill Williams about his first book, 20 Years of Internet Humor and Other Interesting Things, Volume 1. He also shared some advice and inspiration for first time authors. And then part three, which was last week, was my interview with Denise Phillips from Gathering Volumes Bookstore. That is the independent bookstore right here in Perrysburg. We talked about why Denise opened the store and everything it has to offer. And now, my summer reading series wraps up today with Perrysburg resident and author Gary L. Franks. Gary will talk about his books, the research needed to write them, his co authors, advice for first time authors, some of his challenges and joys, and more. Lots coming up here. So, without further ado, here's my conversation with Gary L. Franks. Hi, Gary. Welcome to the Perrysburg Podcast.
Hi.
It's good to have you with me today. You are a local author, and I would love to hear a little bit of background here. Did you grow up in Perrysburg, and what's your background?
No, I grew up in South Toledo and went to Harvard grade school and to Libby High School. And however, I did a lot of visiting to Perrysburg as a kid because my mom had relatives here. And we used to at least come here once a week in the summertime and we'd go to the pool. And I think back then it cost 25 cents to get in.
It's a little different
So,
these days.
yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. I got really interested in history in high school with my American history teacher, Miss Costigan. And I was always just totally interested in what happened, years and years ago.
Okay, thanks for telling me how you got interested in history. With your job as a young person when you graduated from high school, did you become a history teacher? I mean, what did you do with
Oh,
that love of
okay.
history?
No, I went Toledo University, they called it back then, or TU.
Go
Is where I
Rockets.
went. I got a
All right.
degree in engineering there. And I worked at surface combustion for about 8 or 9 years in Toledo. And then I joined SSOE Engineers in 1972 and became a partner there. Was a professional engineer in 14 different states and just had a lots of fun doing engineering in all kinds of industries, food industries, carbon industries, graphite, automotive parts. Really interesting career. As I retired in 1998, early after a couple of my partners passed on prematurely, I think. So, but they called me back immediately, and I've been working part-time since then.
You're still working as an engineer part time?
It's part-time, right?
Wow, that's pretty cool. Now, I have a son who's going to the University of Cincinnati and he's majoring in civil engineering. Well, actually, it's architectural engineering, but it's a discipline of civil. And then my husband went to the University of Toledo, got his mechanical engineering degree. Which engineering degree did you get?
Mechanical engineering. I started out in electrical because I had Toledo Edison scholarship, so you ought to be an electrical engineer, right? But I was, after a couple of years of that, I was just totally disinterested in what they were teaching and the way it was going, so I switched to mechanical. Do you know my grandson, Jamie Phillips? He's at the University of Cincinnati in environmental engineering.
I don't know him, but I can ask my son. It's interesting. Every time I tell people that he goes to the University of Cincinnati and he's an engineering student, they say, "Does he know, so and so?"
Yeah.
So I'll have to ask him about that. I don't know if he knows him,
Hmm.
so we'll find out. Yeah, by the time I edit this interview, I'll have to somehow stick the
Yeah.
answer to this question
Okay.
in at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so he's going into environmental
Yes.
engineering. And
Mhm.
which year is he? Like third,
He's
fourth, fifth?
fresh, just a freshman, just finished his freshman year.
Okay. So he's going to be a second year.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then
My
he'll start the co-op business.
Right on. Yes. My son just finished his first co-op with Rudolph Libby,
Oh.
and he's
Hmm.
finishing up his second year at University of
Oh.
Cincinnati this summer.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I know that pathway well.
Yeah.
Well, back to you and your career. I know that you are a forever engineer by talking to you today. How do you fit in all this writing? I mean, what interested you in writing your first book?
Well, I had no intentions of writing a book, but when I retired, I needed something to do. So at that time, they were just starting to think about construction of the new Maumee Perrysburg Bridge. Kokosing out of Fremont got the contract. I went down there every day and started taking pictures. And I told them they ought to have a website for that construction, just like they did for the Veterans Skyway in Toledo. And so the head guy in charge there at Coasting said, well, we don't have any money for that. Talk to ODOT. So I went to Bowling Green and talked to them down there about setting up a website. And they said, no, we don't have any money for that. Talk to the contractor. So I created a website. And as a matter of fact, it's still online, I think. And I took pictures down there every day of throughout the construction and the dedication. Along the way, I thought, well, there had to be a bridge here before this 1929 bridge that they were demolishing. And so I did some research on that, and I found that there was a bridge built in 1881. And I found out a few facts about it. Being an engineer, I'm very interested in construction details like that. So then I said, well, it must have been a bridge here before 1881. And there was. So before I knew it, I had done a research on a whole bunch of bridges. And before bridges, I did some research on well, how did they cross the river? There were ferries and fords. And I began to get this pile of information and documentation about the bridges. And my wife said, we ought to write a book. And so I said, well, maybe I will. So I was thinking I was going to write a small book, maybe like this thing here.
That's
But
about, you're showing me something that's maybe 24 pages long, right?
yeah, something like that, a little short book, a small book. But by the time I got done with it, I had this big
Yeah, I bought a copy of this one.
thing,
It's called
thing here.
Bridges at the
Yeah.
Foot of the
And you can
Rapids.
see the pictures of the various bridges there on the cover of it. And 250 pages. And it could have been longer. So I had that printed up and copies made and sold a bunch of copies. And so that was my first book. So then after that, I can't remember what my second book was, but in 2016, which was Perrysburg's 200th anniversary, Becky Visser asked me and another engineer, Archie Call, to put together the story of how Perrysburg was founded. And that was for a presentation we were going to make at the library, at Whale Library. And so we put that together. We made the presentation. And matter of fact, we did it, I think, 3 or 4 times because the crowds were just overwhelming every time. We had to limit the number of seats was limited.
Awesome.
So after those presentations, then I thought, well, I'll just put it together in a book. So then I did the founding and survey of Perrysburg, Ohio. And interesting thing about that was there's a bunch of myths about the founding of Perrysburg, the survey of Perrysburg, like it was 1 square mile. And you still see people today talking about the original survey being 1 square mile. Well, it's not. It was nearly 1 3/4 square miles originally done. Another one was that Charles Pierre L'Enfant, who's supposedly surveyed Washington, D.C., but he actually just kind of laid it out. He was later on fired by Thomas Jefferson because he didn't do his job. But the myth was he was involved in the survey of Perrysburg, too. He was not, I found out. So those myths are all covered in my book. Now, interestingly enough, I was just contacted here a couple weeks ago by Brody Walters in the Zoning Commission. In 1835, it turned out that there were no longer any monuments existing in the city of Perrysburg from which you could start a survey. They were all gone. They were probably wood posts or things like that. So the court of Ohio ruled that the Perrysburg city had to conduct another survey in 1835 that would be the official survey. And so they said, and the starting point shall be at the corner of Front and Louisiana on the northwest corner where Houck's drugstore used to be. And right now there's a little concrete post there. Well, Brody wants to have the city put up a plaque there about that being the official starting point of the 1835 survey. So I made up a plaque design, gave it to Brody. He's going to have a plaque made, and it's going to be mounted there. So that'll be the story of the founding and survey of Perrysburg, Ohio. Now, right across the street from that
is Hood Park.
In
right?
Hood Park is a Ohio historical monument, which I composed a text for.
Did you?
I've done it for several around town.
Nice.
However, there's an error in it.
It Confess, sir. What is the error?
Well, the error is that it's one of two cities in the United States surveyed by the federal government. That is incorrect, and that's another myth. And my book talks about this. There are dozens of cities surveyed by the federal government. And so in this book, I made that very clear. So this book was written after I did the design of that plaque. So that's the reason it has an error in it. So let's see, what did I do then as far as after that was done? I was on the Board of Trustees of Historic Perrysburg. And for 6 years, I was editor and author of their newsletter. So somewhere along the way, Tony Clark, another trustee on that board, and I decided we had to check out all these milestones that are along Route 20 out to Fremont. So we did a survey of those milestones and wrote a little small book here about it. We took a picture of every milestone. I made drawings for the book. We have a picture of every milestone and its condition. Right now, one of these milestones turned up missing a couple years ago, and it was at a truck dealership along Route 20. And lo and behold, where is it at? The truck dealership wanted to expand their parking lot, so they contacted the Wood County Museum down there in Bowling Green, said, hey, would you like to have this milestone? And they said, yeah. So it was moved down there, so now it's down there. However, it's the property of the Ohio Department of Transportation. So shouldn't have been moved. They should have got the okay from the department, okay. But anyways, they did it. But that's interesting sidelight to that story.
That brings up the phrase, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. I think that's what they did.
Right. So then let's see, what did I do next? It was probably the Perrysburg Hydraulic Canal. And I got interested in that mainly because I was researching businesses along the waterfront. And you can find all kinds of articles about all those businesses along the waterfront, but nobody knew where the dam was that furnished the water for the hydraulic canal. And a lot of people, including me at the time, thought it was at the foot of Jerome Road, where there was a dam that powered a water mill there by, they call it Presque Isle, where it rises up the hill there in Maumee. However, after getting done with my research, I found out that the dam was 5 1/4 miles upriver from the foot of Louisiana Avenue. So I went up there and snooped around and actually found where it was. And then I went to the Waterville Historical Society and actually found a picture of the dam at the time, and that's in my book. So,
So the Perrysburg Hydraulic Canal actually started in Waterville. Is that what you're saying?
well, that's where the source of the water was, at the dam
Ah,
there.
okay.
And it was not a transportation, commercial or people transportation canal. It was strictly water that furnished hydraulic power for the business along the waterfront in Perrysburg. There was, for instance, out by Fort Meigs, there was a woolen mill out there that furnished power too. There were sawmills, planing mills all along the riverfront in Perrysburg. So they diverted water from this canal downhill and it flowed over water wheels, which then powered the machinery inside these mills. I wanted to get a picture of where the dam was. So I went up the river there to the address that's near Roachton Road and asked the landowner there if I could, go down on his property and take some pictures. And he said no, didn't give me any access, and it was kind of threatening, And so I said, okay, fine. So I went and looked this guy up, and it turns out I had an encounter with him a number of years later, or earlier, probably back, around 1998, 1999. I was kayaking on a river in the fall, and I went over to Big Island with my camera, or no, without my camera this time. I should have had it, but parked my kayak and went out. And at that time, there was big open fields on the island with wooded areas along the perimeter of that. So I would go there and park myself and then watch for deer. Here comes a big herd of deer, probably 90 animals out into the field. And after for a few minutes, I hear a helicopter approaching. And sure as heck, here's a helicopter flying up the river. As it got closer to the island, it came down until it was maybe about 50 feet above the ground, and it swooped down and scattered the deer herd. And then it turned around, went back up, it turned around and came back and did it again. It made several passes, chasing the deer everywhere. It was a Toledo Police Department helicopter. And I wish I had my camera with me. I got the tail number of it. I saw there were two guys in it. And so I contacted the chief of police in Toledo and told him what these guys were doing. You wouldn't expect the Toledo Police Department helicopter to be chasing deer, right? I get a call back from him, and he said, well, he can't imagine they would ever be doing that. And he gave me the name of the pilot. It was the same guy I encountered on River Road who wouldn't let me see his dam.
Oh, okay.
and the chief of police said he never would have done that. Well, he did do it. And so, but anyways, a kind of interesting thing. And he's obviously very proud. Well, so how did I get pictures down at the dam site? I went over to the other side of the river. I was able to get down there. It's a public access. And then I also took my kayak and went down there. And so I do have pictures from that side of where the dam was, and they're in the book.
That's a heck of a story. So you're saying that this guy lived on River Road, not Roachton Road,
Right.
right?
He lived
Okay.
on River Road just past Roachton.
Okay. Okay. Now I'm
Uh,
picturing where that is now. I know that area.
And
There's subdivisions
he
there now.
also has a cemetery in his yard. The Lion Cemetery is in his yard, right near the road. He's got bushes all built around it. And a number of years ago, the Ohio Genealogy Society, the Wood County chapter, asked me to document a number of inactive cemeteries. So that's one of the ones I was supposed to enact. So went to this guy's house and asked if I'd take pictures of his cemetery, and absolutely not. But I did get some because I knew a member of the Lyons family, which has access to that cemetery, so they got those pictures for me. But so several encounters with this fella, and not friendly at all. So it's a little sidelight to that. Well, then, okay, so that takes care of the hydraulic canal book. The next one after that, let's see, this is was this one on the preservation of Fort Meigs and its burial grounds.
I have that one. Yep. My
Yeah.
parents bought that one for me.
So that one was an interesting thing because I got kind of diverted from research I was doing for another book, which I still have the stack of material for on the town of Orleans of the North. So I was researching that in old Perrysburg newspapers, and I saw in there an article that a military person from the Army in Fort Detroit, or Fort Wayne, they called it at the time too, Fort Wayne or Fort Detroit, had visited Perrysburg with the idea of checking out Fort Meigs and its burial grounds. And he was going to write a report on it. So I got diverted from this Orleans of the North research onto this, and found out that this guy did come here and he surveyed it. And at the time in his report, he mentioned this Ellen McMahon Caspers being opposed to moving the burial grounds. She just wanted to preserve where it was. And so she got pretty upset when a report was written recommending they excavate all 825 burials there and move them to the nearest national burial ground, military burial ground, which is in New Albany, Indiana. So what did she do? She went right to the top. She wrote a letter to President Teddy Roosevelt objecting to it. And so he got involved, and the whole thing came kind of a screeching halt about moving them at all. And so that's the story of how this happened. It's interesting because the preservation of Fort Meigs, officially, if you go out there, is a function of the Hayes family that own the property. They are the ones credited with the preservation of Fort Meigs, and not Ellen. And that's the reason they own the property. And all they did was have it for farmland. They grazed cattle on it. But when this all took place, this preservation of it with the convert, Teddy Roosevelt and the Secretary of War and Ellen, was back in the early 1900s. Back then, women were supposed to, raise the kids, cook the meals and all that. They were supposed to be involved in things like this. So a bunch of men actually took it over from her. John Prey was the one that led the effort. And she even predicted that they were going to do that, and they did. They pushed her aside, took over. They're the ones that got the state of Ohio to commit the money for the monument. In the picture, the dedication for the monument, in the background up by it, there's a woman standing there, and I think that is probably Ellen. Mm. So actually, she is the one, I think, that deserves the credit for the preservation of Fort Meigs and its burial grounds.
And this book gives her the credit she deserved?
Yes. One of the interesting things out about that was the where is Colonel Dudley buried? He and his entire commitment were, attacked the cannons in Maumee, and his entire battalion was wiped out. Several hundred soldiers. There's some probably buried there at Maumee Library on the grounds. There's some buried at Fort Miami, probably, and there's some buried at Fort Meigs. And it's very clear on a map made way back in the late 1800s. Colonel Dudley's burial ground is shown, and it's documented. And so that was just 70-some years after the occurrence of that. However, The people at Fort Meigs disagree with that. They said there's no burial. Colonel Dudley's not buried here at all. Well, so we have a little disagreement on that about where he's buried and his contingent buried, but it's very clear that his burying ground is there. I'm pretty sure he's there.
It's interesting to think about how technology has progressed. And
Yeah.
don't they have ground penetrating radar these days
Yes.
to confirm that there is a body? Of course, we can't tell
Yeah.
who it is, but yeah.
Yeah.
Have you had any research on that
No.
as it
Well, I've
relates to
done
this
research
area?
on that, and it's very expensive to have it done. It has not been done there at the fort that I know of. Uh, so, anyways, okay. So then, back in the early 2000s, I helped my friend Becky Visser write a book on Woodlawn Cemetery, published by Arcadia. I just did some proofreading and took some pictures for it. And then she was getting ready to do another book on Woodlawn Cemetery. Its second 50 years. The first book was on the first 50 years. But then she talked to me and said, well, maybe you ought to do Forest Cemetery because that was the first municipal cemetery in Toledo. So we did that, and then that's how this book came about, and we did research on that and how it was formed in 1840 and where the land came from. And we have documented in here the burials by where the people were in the government, fire departments, police departments, and all of Toledo's founders are buried there. The Bissell family, Benjamin Stickney is buried there.
That's pretty cool.
16 of the first mayors of Toledo, the first fire chiefs, the first police chiefs. And then we just have a whole section in here on a lot of just ordinary citizens that are buried there that, people never heard of. So we documented 130 people in this book
The
about
title
Forest
again is
Cemetery.
Toledo's Forest Cemetery, the foundation of Toledo's history told in vignettes of the city's founders and early settlers. Very cool. By Rebecca Deck Visser and Gary L. Franks, Perrysburg, Ohio. Much respect to you. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, so we had Becky and I had another book planned after this one because we had enough biographies and stuff done. We could have done another book like this. Unfortunately, she passed away in 3 years ago. We had all our research done, but I have not gotten around to writing the book.
And what is the name of that one that has not been published yet? Do you have a title for it?
It'll be Toledo's Forest Cemetery,
Volume 2?
Volume 2 or something like that.
Okay.
I don't know if that'll ever get written. That brings us back to now the current book, or my last book written with Mark Weber, Perrysburg Then and Now. And in 2016, Mark and I consolidated our pictures and made a bunch of poster boards and things of the pictures for the museum, Perrysburg Area History Museum, where we're on the board of trustees. And then I told Mark, I said, well, you had all this stuff together. I said, you ought to write a book. Well, then he got selected for the city council, and several years went by, and I just kept after him to write this book. And he said, I've never written a book. I don't know how to write a book. So there. And I said, okay.
He's giving you excuses.
I said, we're going to write a book. You and I are going to write a book. I'm going to co-author it with you, and you're going to help me. So he gave in, and then so we put this book together. So it's basically a pictorial book. And so we took all of our old pictures, and I had a whole bunch of collection in my collection. He had a collection. We went around and to the same location, for instance, on Louisiana Avenue, looking back toward the river, at Way Library back then in 1930, the old one. And then we would go there with that picture and stand in about the same place and take a current picture. So that's the then and the now that we did for that. By the time we got done, between the two of us, we had over 3,600 pictures, then pictures and now pictures.
Wow.
So obviously there aren't 3,600 pictures in this book. There's, I think, around 550 or 560 of then and now pictures of various places. And this book we have sold, I forget how many copies this, nearly 1,500 copies have been sold to date. So we had a lot of fun doing this. I had, for the aerial pictures, like the one that's on the cover, we had the old black and white picture you see there is from the Toledo Blade. Give us permission to use that. And then the now one, the one in color, my neighbor, Bill Hayes, is a pilot. So he took me up and we had to make about 20 passes with me taking pictures until we got one where the streets lined up with the old picture. And then, so the other aerial pictures that are in there, my friend Mike Hayden used his drone to take those pictures. So we had a lot of fun taking aerial pictures all over the place. And Mark and I had a lot of fun putting these all together and doing the research and had a lot of comments. One of the interesting things is in here, there's a picture of Perrysburg pool guards back in the early or 50s and 60s. Well, when we had those pictures taken, or the old pictures, the then pictures, none of these people were identified. So what we did was we went to Way Library and got some old yearbooks. They were all seniors
Perrysburg
basically
students.
in Perrysburg High School.
Yeah.
So we'd look at the picture, we'd look at the yearbook and say, yeah, that's so and so, that's so and so. So that's what's in the book, our research based on high school pictures. So then one of the fellows that bought the book, we recognized as being one of the guards. So we opened the book and said, did we get these names right? He said, yeah, you got them all right.
Way to go.
So that was interesting aspect of that book.
Yeah, the title again is Perrysburg Then and Now, a pictorial look at the past and present of Perrysburg, Ohio, by Mark A. Weber and Gary L. Franks. And like you said, the cover of this book is kind of cut at a diagonal here. It's a rectangular picture, but the top left is the Blades photo from yesteryear, and the bottom right is what you and your neighbor, Bill Hayes, the pilot, shot from the air, right?
Yep.
Awesome. Yep. And inside the book, I love that there's a picture of you and Bill with the plane right there in this book. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then, of course, on the back is the then and now of Mark and I.
This is great. I'm not laughing
So-
at you. I'm laughing because the clothing.
Oh, yeah.
The clothing's a little
Yeah.
different.
Yep.
Yep. It was a little different back then, but I enjoy seeing this because I wasn't alive back then. I was born in 1978, so
Oh, yeah.
maybe some of these pictures were around, but I hadn't seen them yet. Congratulations on all this
Yeah.
publishing. You have to have a lot of motivation to follow through on writing a book. What was your motivation to write book after book?
Once I did the first book, then I thought, well, I ought to do these because if this stuff doesn't get written down, it's going to be lost forever in the dustbin of history, as they say. And especially to come up with the complete story, like here on the complete story of where was the dam? Nobody knew. Or the complete story on the founding and survey of Perrysburg. The people that actually did the work and to document that was fun. So all these books are in the Way Library. And most of them are in Toledo Public Libraries, and they're also at the Ohio History Connection in Columbus, and along with several other books, which I don't have here, which are maybe just there's just one or two copies that I had made. And for instance, the history of Grace Church in Perrysburg, I just completed last year.
Oh, I saw that article in the PMJ newspaper. I think I
Oh,
emailed you and I said, good job
yeah,
on that.
yeah.
Yes.
And then also I did on Beer's 1880 history of Wood County. I did the complete index of all the names in that book. And that book is like 4 inches thick, lots of names in there. And that book is my index for all the names is in the Toledo Public Library downtown. That's the only place it resides.
In talking to you, I hear that your motivation was to preserve history.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you've done it.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, all this history, all your research will live on because it is now published in these books.
Mhm.
And you talked about your books being at the Way Public Library. The first time I encountered the first book that you published, Bridges at the Foot of the Rapids, we were talking about the Perrysburg Maumee Bridge. I checked it out from Way Public Library. I
Mhm.
think the copy that I got a hold of was actually from Rossford Library. So it's
No.
in more libraries than
Mhm.
just Way Public.
Right.
But then I, contacted you and I said, I want my own copy. And you were
Mhm.
happy to sell
Right.
me one, which was great. And we met at Way Public
Mhm.
Library to, do a little business.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Now, as a local author, I know that your topic of interest was local history. But for anybody who's thinking about writing a book and they're from Perrysburg, you've proven that it's possible. What advice do you have for local authors?
Well, don't be afraid to write. Uh, and of course, now, there's with artificial intelligence and things, artificial intelligence will do a lot of the research for you. What I would recommend is I self published my books. When I was thinking about publishing the book, a lot of places you go to want to sell you a package. They will market your book nationwide. For $1,000, they would make 25 copies of your book, market it nationwide. Well, you know, who in Boulder, Colorado is interested in a survey of Perrysburg? Probably not many people. So I found this company in Memphis. The name of the company is instantpublisher.com in Collierville, Tennessee. It's near Memphis. I found them, and their main line of business is publishing cookbooks. So when I contacted them, I said, do you publish any other kind of book? Yeah, we'll publish any kind of book. Uh, do you market it? No, we don't market it. All we do is print it, basically. So that's the place I recommend people to go to if they want to publish a book. You can go online to their website and you can put in the number of pages in your book, the type of cover you want, whether or not you have color, and so forth, whether you're going to design the cover, you want them to design the cover, and you get a price instantly of what it will cost.
And we're talking about print only, not ebook, correct?
Well, I also did ebooks
Oh,
for a
good.
couple of my books.
Same company, right?
No, I did it myself.
Oh, you did the ebook yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I put it on a CD, never sold a single one.
Well, you got to put it in Kindle book format or something, right?
Yeah. So I've kind of given up on the, digital copies.
I was just curious if instantpublisher.com also put your printed books into the ebook format so you could sell them, for example, on amazon.com.
I thought about doing that, but
I
what I
wonder if they
found
could.
out is they print on demand.
For the ebook? Oh, for the
Yeah.
printed book.
For if you want a printed one, they print it on
Yeah.
demand.
How do you feel about
I
that?
don't know how they do that.
I actually
they would-
published my book. I have a short book about podcasting,
Mhm.
and I went through a publisher who's a friend of mine. I'm a pharmacist by training. She's a pharmacist that used to publish for the American Pharmacists Association. She's very reputable.
Mhm.
And when I published, she made sure that I could put it on Amazon as a print book. And I do believe that they do print on demand when somebody purchases it, but it's also available as an ebook. And I narrated the audiobook because it's
Mhm.
something I know how to do.
Mhm.
Yeah, so maybe you could go back to these guys and say, "Hey, I've got it on CD. Can you put it out into
Yeah.
Kindle book format or something? I don't know. Just trying to help you out.
Okay. I'll think about that.
All right. All right. You never know because you could be a source of information for other small towns who have somebody who's got the passion
Oh,
for,
yeah.
this local history, but they don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
could really
Yeah.
inspire some people.
Mark and I have talked to different people, like in Maumee
Right.
and in Waterville, and telling them that they ought to do a then and now book for
Absolutely.
their towns. And we haven't convinced anybody yet, but
It's a lot of work, like you
we
said.
said, we won't charge you anything.
Oh, you could coach them, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah. I said, we'll tell you the format, show you our book and recommended things, how to do it. And
Did you publish all of these, the printed versions,
yeah,
through this
yeah, yeah,
instantpublisher.com?
all of them. Right.
Yeah, so I mean, you can even send them to a publisher and
Yeah.
say, "This is how
Yeah.
many pages I had. This is the size of the book. This is how much it cost."
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's everybody needs a business plan, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Well, that was good advice, though, for local authors. Like, you can do it. Here's a publisher. If I can do it, you can do it. But what other advice do you have for local authors? They have an idea. How do they get it out of their
Well,
heads
do it.
and into
Just
a book?
sit down and start writing. And today, with the software today, all of my books I did in Microsoft Word. From instantpublisher.com, you can actually download templates for the size book you want in Microsoft Word. And it's all set up with the correct margins and everything. And then use Microsoft Word to check your grammar and spelling. And it becomes a lot easier using the software.
Did you have an editor, somebody who proofread this?
Well, a couple of these books, yeah. My daughter, Christy,
Good job, Christy.
who's who's almost as crazy as I am about correct English language.
My mom's an English teacher. You're
Yeah,
preaching to the choir here.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, it does help to have another set of eyes on it, right?
Oh, definitely, because well, even today, after some of these books, we got the different editions. We find errors,
Hmm.
and just casually reading through. Whoa, how did I miss that? You know?
Every author I've ever interviewed has said the same thing. If I had it to do all over again, I would have fixed that, or I would have done this, or I would have updated this because who
Yeah,
knew that 5 years later I would have figured that out. So you're normal, Gary.
yeah,
You're
yeah. So
normal.
our subsequent editions of the Perrysburg Then and Now have corrections in them that we have, where we found the errors.
Okay. Yep, it happens. I think that's a really good message that you're sharing with future authors, though. Like, don't wait for it to be perfect, right? Just
Right,
publish it
right.
and hope that the worst that ever happens is you kick yourself about one word that you find later on, right?
Yeah.
What's the worst that could happen? Gary, we talked about challenges a little bit ago. You were talking about getting permission to get some photographs. What other challenges have you encountered as you've written all these books?
Well, one of the big ones is reaching a dead end on research, and there's more, but you just can't find anything, and so you have to go and exhaust all your resources. And of course, can do a lot of research online, but a lot of times you'll have to go to the Toledo Library, go to the Monroe, Michigan Library, go to the Waterville Historical Society, and go through their hard copy stuff and just see if do they have anything.
I feel like you had some eye strain possibly from looking through all this material.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I bet that
yeah,
would be hard, just staring at screens or just words on pages
yeah.
for extended periods of time.
Well, a lot of times you'll go to some place like Waterville Historical Society. When I got the pictures of the dam for the hydraulic canal, I knew it was up that way somewhere. But I say, hey, do you guys have anything on the dam on the river that was near Waterville? Oh, and they gave me the name of a guy. We said we got a file here on a guy's dam with a guy's name was attached to the dam. We have a picture of it. Well, when we looked at it and where it was on this material, the hard copy they had, turns out that was the dam I was looking for. Never would have found it had I not gone there.
Yeah, sometimes you need people. I mean, you can't just look at words
Yeah.
on a page. You have to ask a human that just might have that in their own personal memory bank, you
Yep.
know,
That's right.
and they can direct you to the right spot.
Mhm.
That's got to be frustrating, though. Yes, looking for something, wild goose chases, I'm sure happen. And
Oh, yeah.
then you have to edit yourself. Like, man, I really want
Yeah.
that piece of information,
Mhm.
but I just can't find it. So you have to exclude it, but then not complain about it in the book. Like, well, I would have put this picture in here, but I couldn't find it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that's hard. Any other challenges that you could kind of clue local authors into?
Pricing of a book, of your book, if you want to sell copies of your book. All my book, I sell at cost. Matter of fact, I even lose a few cents on some of them, each copy. But to me, it's not about making money. I don't don't seek to make any money unless you're actually that's your full time job as an author, obviously. But yeah, price them at your cost. You'll sell a lot more.
That's got to be hard to price it because, like you said, it's hard to put a price on what you're trying to do. Your motivation is passing on history, and
Right.
covering your costs sounds like a fair price to
Yeah.
me. Yes. Well, thank you for sharing those challenges. Anything else that we could talk about? Maybe is there anything weird that's happened as you've gone about your author journey? Anything weird that you'd like to share?
The weirdest things are these encounters with people that want to throw you off their property, or yeah, that's some of the strangest things. Why? What have they got against history that especially after you explain to them why you're there and you're trying to do this and to preserve history and get out of here. I don't want anything to do with that.
I think some people are just private. I can respect that.
Yeah,
But yeah, that is a strange thing because you go in there with this straightforward notion that, listen, I know there's a graveyard right here on this property. Just want to snap a quick picture. May I have your permission? And when
yeah.
they say no, it's like, whoa,
Oh,
why?
okay.
And
Then you find the workaround, like I did.
yeah, well, you knew a guy
But
and that got you your picture.
you got to be persistent.
Well, I know that you said that you're going to be working on the Toledo Forest Cemetery Volume 2, maybe someday. But do you
Yes.
have any other books in the works? What's next for you?
Well, the one that I got diverted on when I was doing the book on Fort Meigs, Orleans to the North. I have a stack of research material. It's about 15 inches high.
Oh, my.
And I started that 10 years ago. So that's another one I have to just make a commitment to sit down and start doing it.
Well, I wish you luck on your next book. And it's been a real pleasure having you here to talk about all of your books. How can somebody buy these?
Well, you can contact me if you go to my website. All you have to do is Google Engineer 9. That's 9, number 9. Engineer 9, and my website should come up. And so then on there it has all my books, pictures of them, and the cost. In the Toledo and Perrysburg, Maumee area, I will deliver the book to you free if you want to buy it. Or you can take it mail order, but the mail order costs about another $5 or $6 for the mailing. The other place, other than that, at the Perrysburg Car Show, which I go to every week up there at Commodore Square, I have books for sale in my trunk, all my books. And also at the various like Harrison Rally Days in Perrysburg, or what do they call it now?
Homecoming Festival
Homecoming
now.
Festival.
Yep. Hmm.
My books are all there for sale at that also.
That's where I've bought at least one of them. Yep. And I met up with you at Way Public Library for another, and my
Yep.
parents gifted me one. So I have three of your books so
Yeah.
far.
Good.
Yeah. Well, I will get the website and put it in the show notes for this episode. And then may I put your email address in the show notes as
Sure.
well?
Yeah.
All right. Super. And then they can just reach out to you and maybe do a little meetup at the car show.
Sure.
Yeah, that's worth coming to town for, even if you're from out of town.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. We have a great car show here in Perrysburg Friday nights.
Yep. Every Friday night.
That's right. All right. Anything else you'd like to share as we wrap this up?
No, I appreciate it, Kim.
All right. It's
Thank
been
you.
my pleasure, Gary. Thank you so much for being on the Perrysburg podcast. Take care.
Sure thing. Bye bye.
Thanks again to Gary L. Franks for being my guest on episode 104 of the Perrysburg podcast. If I counted correctly, Gary has published 7 books so far. They are all listed on his website, and I've got a link to that on perrysburgpodcast.com in the show notes. But just in case you don't get a chance to go over to the website and read that, I will recap the list for you right now. The books are number 1, Perrysburg Then and Now. Number 2, Bridges at the Foot of the Rapids. Number 3, The Preservation of Fort Meigs and its Burial Grounds. Number 4, the Maumee and Western Reserve Road, its history and a survey of its milestones. Number 5, the founding and survey of Perrysburg, Ohio. Number 6, Perrysburg's hydraulic canal. And number 7, Toledo's Forest Cemetery. That ends the list of books by Gary L. Franks. I don't think those are necessarily in order, don't hold me to that, but those are listed on his website. Again, there is a link to it on perrysburgpodcast.com. Now, it sounds like Gary is trying to discern whether he's going to move forward with books 8 and 9. One of them that he mentioned was Orleans of the North, and the other one was Toledo's Forest Cemetery, Volume 2. Now, if anybody in town can take those books over the finish line, it's Gary. So good luck to Gary as he discerns if he's moving forward with books 8 and 9 or not. Gary also mentioned a book about Woodlawn Cemetery during our conversation. Woodlawn Cemetery, of course, being in Toledo, Ohio. I believe that Gary said he contributed some photographs to that one. Now, that book is not listed on Gary's website, but he did mention it in this episode, so I have a link to it in the show notes for episode 104 on perrysburgpodcast.com. The book is called Toledo's Woodlawn Cemetery Images of America by Rebecca Deck Visser and Renee Simonillo Jane. It is available in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle book. That does it for mentions about books. Now, what I'd like to do is give you a number of pearls of wisdom from this episode that I caught that I would like to make sure that you catch too. I will share just 6 that I noticed, and then we'll wrap this episode up. Number 1, you don't have to be an author by trade to write a book. You just have to have a really strong why, a really good reason, and the passion behind it to see it over the finish line. As a reminder, Gary is an engineer, a mechanical engineer, a professional engineer by training. Number 2, Gary filled a gap with his books. There weren't local history books about the topics Gary chose, so he stepped up and wrote them. Maybe there is a gap you can fill by writing a book too. Number 3, Gary self published his books through Instant Publisher. You can self publish too. Pearl number 4, you don't have to write your book alone. You can use tools and ask people to help you. Proofreaders and editors can make a big difference before your book is published. And even after you publish the book, if you have a second edition, you can take your reader feedback and update your book. Number 5, price your book to sell. If your book is affordable, you'll sell more copies. And if you meet people where they're at, like literally going to the Friday night car shows or the homecoming festival here in Perrysburg, you might sell more copies. So again, price your book to sell and meet people where they're at. And number 6, be persistent. You might go on wild goose chases. You might find dead ends. You might get a door slammed in your face, literally, or need to work for years and years to get your facts straight. But if you are passionate about what you're doing, you can write a book too. That's it for my pearls of wisdom. Thank you so much for listening to the Perrysburg Podcast, episode 104. You can find the show notes for this episode on perrysburgpodcast.com. In the show notes, you will find Gary's website, his email address, the link to the Woodlawn Cemetery book, the list of other episodes in this summer reading series, and more. Everything you need is on perrysburgpodcast.com. Subscribe to or follow this show on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. You can also sign up for my weekly newsletter for this podcast. If you sign up, I will email you every time a new episode comes out. That's every Friday. Go ahead and share this episode with anyone you know who might like to hear about Gary's books or my summer reading series. I thank you again for listening today, and I'll talk to you next week.